consultant rats. Wait, are those rats you can actually consult? Oh, we are in the last 2 SCPs now. Look at that little guy. Look at him behind that cage. Euclid. Specimens of Specimens of SCP-1318 are to be kept in individual wire cages in a secured room in a facility otherwise devoid of laboratory animals due to the nature of the cognitive hazard presented by SCP-1318. No research staff shall be permitted to interact directly with the specimens. Any experiments involving specimens are to be carried out by appropriately trained Class D personnel under remote observation by the assigned researcher. File photo Frankie, first discovered a specimen of SCP-1318. Experimental protocols should be designed to strictly limit the duration of exposure to SCP-1318 specimens. No individual Class D is to be scheduled for this duty more than once per week. Under no circumstances should any personnel be assigned duty which would increase the cumulative exposure time to SCP-1318 to over 16 hours. Any personnel showing signs of excessive SCP-1318 exposure are to be treated with amnestics and must undergo a thorough psychological examination before returning to duty. If delusions persist after drug treatment and counseling, disability leave may be granted at the discretion of the project lead. Class D personnel experiencing persistent delusions are to be terminated. Description: SCP-1318 is a spontaneously occurring phenomenon found in an estimated 0.0001% of specimens of a long Evans strain of Rattus novecicus, the Norwegian brown rat. There's a footnote that says, this phenomenon appears to be restricted to the long Evans strain and has never been witnessed in other laboratory strains or wild specimens. Instances are indistinguishable from other long Evans specimens in size, intelligence, appearance, and lifespan. However, humans spending 20-80 cumulative hours in close proximity, approximately 3 meters to an SCP-1318 specimen, develop the following delusion complex: that the specimen is sapient and capable of speech, that the specimen is a subject matter expert in the field of employment, that the best ideas originate from conversations with the specimen, that these properties of SCP-1318 are possibly hereditary, and that any offspring of the specimen should be exempt for experimentation pending unspecified analysis. That possession of SCP-1318 provides significant competitive advantage, precluding the sharing of data about specimens with outside organizations. In addition to this cumulative effect, persons introduced to an SCP-1318 specimen by an affected individual will immediately be affected by the delusional systems. An introduction consists of addressing the specimen as a sentient being who is being made acquainted with an unaffected individual. While affected persons report that they hear SCP-1318 specimen speaking, view of the recordings of such conversation reveal that the affected persons are in fact sub-vocalizing the specimen's response to the queries. Also, they're speaking for themselves. Is that what you're trying to say? They kind of do like the whole thing where like I'll be like, "So Henry, what do you want for dinner?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe pizza." Okay, yeah. Is it like that kind of thing? SCP-1318 was discovered when a routine performance review in 1993 found that productivity at the Bioscience Laboratory at Research Site 27 had declined by 75% in a 6-month period without a corresponding decline in research quality. An internal audit of the facility determined that the entire staff of the lab were affected by delusions pertaining to a male SCP-1318 specimen whom they dubbed Frankie. 2 members of the audit team were likewise affected by the nature of the hazard was determined. All affected personnel were interviewed and treated with amnestics, though 15% of staff suffered from persistent delusional states and were subsequently relieved of duty. Frankie was determined to have entered the facility as part of a routine delivery of model organisms from Charles River Laboratories. No anomalous properties were detected in any other specimen in the shipment. And here we have a long-ass interview log. Well, not really long. So, interview log 1-1-5. Good morning, Mr. Money. I would like to ask a few questions about the model organism design -1. Hey, sure, there's sure a lot of your internal affair guys around. Is everything okay? This is an information gathering exercise, not a disciplinary hearing. Now, what can you tell me about -1? You mean Frankie, right? Yes, I believe the staff referred to it as Frankie. Oh, Frankie's great. He's a real easy to talk to, and he's got a head for organic chemistry like nobody ever seen. How did you discover its anomalous properties? Well, a couple months ago, I was getting really stuck trying to synthesize one of the components from the SCP fluid, and I was bitching about it. And in the lunchroom, Kowalski from biology says to me, "Hey, you should run that by Frankie." And I'm like, "Who the fuck is Frankie?" So researcher Kowalski introduced you to the specimen. Yeah, he takes me into this mostly empty storeroom, nothing in there except this big cage with one little rat in it. And I'm like, what the hell is this Frankie guy? And Kowalski says, that's him right there. Referring to the rat. Yeah, so I'm just about to punch Kowalski in the mouth for taking me on a snipe hunt when he starts talking to Frankie and Frankie starts talking back. What were they discussing? Kowalski's is like, hey, my buddy Moni here is stuck on some hairy ocean. Do you think you could help him out? And Frankie is all, sure thing, nice to meet you, Mr. Moni. It was weird too, because you think a little rat like that would have a squeaky voice or something, but he just sound like a regular guy. Okay, never mind. Sure thing, nice to meet you, Mr. Moni. Was your discussion with the organism fruitful? Yeah, it was amazing. I just told him that I was trying to do, and he walked me through a possible synthesis as easy as giving direction to the grocery store. I took it back to the lab and it worked the first time. And you continued to consult with the organism? Yeah, I did, but by the end of the month, most of the guys in the lab were talking to Frankie when they got stuck on something. That little bastard can talk about almost anything you throw at him, you know? Why did you disclose the presence of the anomaly? Well, it sounds stupid when I say now, but everyone in the bio lab kind of figured that Frankie was our secret weapon. Everyone's doing amazing work, and we figured we'd keep it to ourselves for a little bit. You should not say that ever. You should never say that you kept a SCP hidden because it's your secret weapon. That just makes you sound suspicious. And if you didn't say that, if you said like I kept it hidden because he was so useful or so helpful with my work, you still kept an SCP hidden while working for the SCP Foundation. You're gonna lose a lot of your trust there. Not only that, maybe you're gonna lose your life there or your job. Like either or, you're gonna lose something. Our records show that while the quality of work coming from your labs was consistently high, there was a precipitous drop in total output. If the organism was so helpful, how do you account for this? So it was a couple of things, I guess. The biggest problem is that there are only so many hours in the day and Frankie's asleep for half of them. So the scheduling got to be a little hairy. People were unable to proceed until they could consult with the organism. Well, it's like, you could go without talking to Frankie, but once you talk to him, you probably have to start over anyway, so why bother? Also, lots of people time was taking up with the breeding program. Yeah, we figured we couldn't keep it to ourselves forever, and how great would it be if every lab in the Foundation had their own Frankie. That will be all for now, Mr. Monet. You fucked up with this whole interview. I just think to myself, like, you are doing horrible. You're just making, like, you're putting yourself in a much worse position by just talking. Like, I was like, oh, we kept it hidden because of, like, he was so useful, right? Like, he's a useful one. Like, that's not, you should never keep an SCP hidden. And then also calling it your secret weapon is not good, and then becoming dependent on Frankie is horrible as well, because, like, it means, like, you're basically just slouching off until you can talk to Frankie, and then the more people want to talk to Frankie, the more tired he will get, so the more people will slouch, because Frankie's like, I'm done for the day. Yeah, no, this whole idea is this whole situation is iffy.